If you remember, we set up a media development fund. There were a few challenges at the time, and so we put it in abeyance for the meantime. But I think there is something that we can look at again. Set up a media development fund. Government puts seed money into it. It was meant to improve training of journalists. It was meant to attend to welfare of journalists and so on and so forth. And so it's something that we are willing to reactivate. And together with the GJA and all the other media umbrella groups, we'll sit down and see how this media development fund can inure to the benefit of people in the media space. And so those are all things that we are willing to look at. The immediate issue with the exchange rate and the economy is that the best signal Ghanaians can send to both domestic and international investors is that we're ready to change the current trajectory on which we are. I think that if we hold a successful election, we demonstrate to the world and our people that we are willing to change this trajectory on which we are, that is leading us further into the abyss. It will restore confidence in the economy. That in itself will send a signal that stabilizes the foreign exchange. Currently, nobody has hope in where we're going. And so people are hedging because of the rate of deterioration of the value of the cedi. People are hedging for other foreign currencies. And when it happens like that, then it puts further pressure on the currency. And so we would instill fiscal discipline, because eventually the main driver of the economy is fiscal discipline and fiscal consolidation. And so if you only want to ramp up revenues, but you're not willing to cut expenditures, then you have a situation where your budget deficit is out of kilter. And as you know, we had a budget deficit that went as high as 15% of GDP. And unless we instill fiscal discipline, we'll continue to have a situation where it puts pressure on our currency. It's like a household budget. You cannot spend more than you earn. And that is what this government has been, spending more money than they earn, borrowing more money than they can afford to pay. And that is what has, created the situation in which we are. So we must reduce the deficit, we must instill fiscal discipline, we must reduce the debt burden, and already there is a debt restructuring going on. And so we must continue the debt restructuring, but make sure that we put in the buffers so that we don't fall into this situation again. In my administration, we set up what we call the sinking fund, and we capped the stabilization fund. So any excess money that was above what you go to the stabilization fund went into the sinking fund. We also committed other revenues into the sinking fund so that we could anticipate debts that were becoming due and pay them. This government came and depleted the sinking fund and did not replenish it. And that is how come that we are in the crisis in which we currently are. And so replace the sinking fund, create more buffers so that the economy is more resilient to shocks. The thing about the world is it's unpredictable and shocks will come. But it is how resilient your economy is that will make you be able to come out of the shocks. We all went into the shock together with Côte d'Ivoire. Today our economy is so battered and bruised. And Côte d'Ivoire's economy is much more stable. And I just saw a video of the president waxing lyrical about Côte d'Ivoire in 2016. Today, I don't think he wants to hear that comparison, because inflation is lower in Côte d'Ivoire, far lower, single digit. And our inflation is at 25%. It went as high as 54%. And so discipline is important. But apart from that, part of the reason we're suffering is the collapse of the cocoa sector. Cocoa has been a traditional pillar of this economy. And when I was leaving office, we did a syndication, cocoa syndication of $1.8 billion. The banks had confidence in this country, and so they gave us $1.8 billion upfront to put in the cocoa industry. And this syndication has been going on over the years. Currently, the last syndication we did, we struggle to even make $800 million. I don't think we've received $800 million for the syndication. And so that injection of foreign currency that was predictable and sure, that used to come into the country every year, helped to stabilize the foreign exchange. Today, the cocoa industry is a pale shadow of itself. And so one of the things in the medium term is to revamp the cocoa industry as quickly as possible and make sure that its impact in terms of foreign currency injection is revived. Aside from that, we need to quicken our pace in the oil and gas sector. All of you have heard of the transition to green energy. It is real, it is happening. And so every country that has an oil and gas industry is putting in the maximum investment in order not to have what we call stranded assets. You will have the oil wells, but if that transition is completed, nobody will be interested in putting money to recover that crude oil and gas. These 8 years have been wasted completely. In my time, in 4 years, I worked tooth and nail to bring 2 new oil wells into production. If you look at the 10 years of oil production, from 2010 when we started oil production till 2016 when I left office, we have earned about $3.3 billion from our share of oil production. In the 8 years, that's because of the work I did to bring 2 new oil wells, in the 8 years that Nanado and Baumia have been in office, Ghana has earned $7.3 billion. And so in total, over 10 years, over the period from 2010 till now, we have earned about 10 billion, 7 point something of it in Baumia and Akufo-Addo's time, and 3 point something of it in Professor Mills and my time. For the last 8 years, nothing has happened in our oil industry. Not a single drop of oil has been added. Unfortunately, our production of oil has reduced by 32%. And so we're producing less. So one of the things we'll do is to quicken and attract the oil companies to come back. As I speak, he and I have run away to Côte d'Ivoire because of the unfavorable environment here. ExxonMobil was going to do significant work here because of greed. ExxonMobil decided to pull out because they thought the environment was toxic and corrupt, and so they pulled out. So one of the things is to restore investor confidence in the oil field, and there are oil fields and compartments that have been appraised that are just waiting to begin production. And so revamping them and ramping up our oil production and gas will bring in the needed foreign exchange that will help to shore up our currency. But we must also look at getting more from our extractives. We have bauxite, we have gold, we have lithium, we have manganese, we have so many other minerals. We will work to make sure that Ghana's share of those extractives is increased so that we can have more foreign currency coming into our country. We produce gold, but because it's not streamlined, a lot of that gold is leaking out and individuals are making the profit instead of the country making it. And so we'll streamline the extractives so that we're able to earn more money.